Oh, better late than never. 370 years later, Connecticut state senators have voted to absolve a dozen men and women who were convicted of witchcraft back in the 1600s. 11 of them were executed. It is a culmination of an effort from some history buffs and descendants. Advocates say it is important to right the wrongs of the past so we don't repeat them in the future.
Welcome, everyone, to A Call for Judgment. I wanted to touch on this story. I've covered stories like this over the last couple of years, and yet once again, of course, because there's so many, there's nothing important going on in the world at all right now. I mean, we're not seeing food shortages, we're not seeing chaos, we're not seeing civil unrest. No. It's important for politicians to focus on this. That's why in Connecticut, they've just exonerated victims of 17th century witch trials. Now, this isn't the first time, because I've been covering this story and stories like this, where they're focusing in on witches from centuries ago, and they're exonerating them as if it matters. They're long dead, but they're saying it does matter. To set an example, that anyone who's accused of witchcraft is innocent, and anyone who accuses someone of witchcraft is a crazy conspiracy theorist or somebody who's just making up. Don't mind the fact that all of these movies just constantly talk about and glorify witchcraft. No. 376 years after these 11 people were executed, and by the way, don't forget the Bible verse, which I can't read because it'll be considered hateful. Exodus chapter 22, verse 18. You could look it up yourself, but I'll just read part of it. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to ... fill in the blank, right? But that's hate speech, so we can't go there. So 376 years later, the bad spell that befell the innocent people accused of being witches during the U.S. colonial period is over. So let me just get this straight. Was there a trial here that actually says that they're innocent, or are we automatically deeming them innocent, right? Because we're not going back and looking at evidence or anything like that. They're just looking at it saying anyone who is accused of being a witch is innocent because witchcraft isn't real. Witches aren't real. Don't mind the fact that we have Maleficent, we have every single Disney movie ever, Harry Potter, constantly talking about witchcraft, but that's not real. Not to mention superheroes, which their superpowers are based off of witchcraft. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about Taylor Swift performing witchcraft rituals on stage. Don't worry about that. So it's all make-believe. It's all pretend. 376 years ago, people were just targeting these women and men who are doing witchcraft and practicing Satan, sorcery, They were just picking them out because they didn't like the way that they smelled. Probably smelled like sulfur, but nonetheless, they didn't like the way that they looked. So they were just doing it for no reason whatsoever. Nobody had anything better to do. There's no way that the witches could have been caught doing things with animals and children. No way. No way at all, right? And again, they want you to think it's make-believe. So don't worry about DNA. Don't worry about CSI. Don't worry about any kind of actual evidence to exonerate somebody who may have been accused of being a witch who wasn't a witch. No. They're saying in general, all the people that were accused were innocent because witchcraft's not real. Now, I showed this clip recently. Of course, this video is now long gone. You all know why. But I'm going to show it again because on that show, Ancestry, which is, I think it's something like, Roots, something about Roots, which is brought to you by Ancestry.com. The same people who want you to send them your spit swabs so they can have your DNA because they care so much to tell you if you were related in a third life to Princess Diana or to Henry III or to Paul Bunyan. I mean, the ridiculous stuff that, did you know that you might have been related to King Kong? Really? Send your DNA. We'll find out. Oh, okay. I'm not going to worry about the government having my DNA for any reason whatsoever. And by the way, they openly tell you that they do not get rid of your DNA once you give it to them at Ancestry.com. They actually do give it to the government. They openly admit to that. That's only to protect you, of course. In case, something was to happen to you, they'd have your DNA on file. Not the other way around, of course, to frame you by having your DNA. Don't think like that because you'd be a conspiracy nut. But here's Jeff Daniels, most notably, or I should say most known for his role in Dumb and Dumber, where, he takes that huge dump in Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, he's a real role model. And Claire Danes, an actress that nobody has a clue what she's in. Maybe Titanic? I have no idea. No, I don't think she's in Titanic. But whatever. Claire Danes, these two were on Ancestry, and of course, were victimizing their long-lost relatives who were wrongfully killed in the witch trials. Don't think about the fact that they're actually admitting that they're related to people, witches and Satanists, of course, because that's not what the point is. The point is to victimize, of course, anyone who's involved in Satanism and witchcraft.
Jeff, you're looking at two court records from the year 1692. the examination and confession of Samuel Wardwell. Samuel Wardwell saith that at that time when the devil appeared and told him he was a prince of the air, and that the devil brought him the pen and ink.
You know why he would be testifying at this particular time?
Salem witch trials? Now the Salem witch trials are my fault. All right.
Jeff's ancestor testified against a man named Samuel Wardwell in what became known as the Salem witch trials. Was a self-professed fortune teller, and he fell victim to the hysteria that had gripped his fellow colonists.
That Mary Parker of Andover, before as after certain detestable arts called witchcraft and sorceries.
What do you guess was driving this?
I have no idea. No idea. So Mary Parker is practicing witchcraft and sorcery on his daughter and granddaughter.
That's right.
We're going to put a stop to that.
That's right. We're going to put her lights out. Mary Parker and Samuel Wardwell, along with 6 others, were hanged.
Great.
How do you think their 8th great-grandfather felt about his involvement in this?
Well, I would
smoke
guess
cleared?
thrilled. Look what I did.
Got rid of the evil
Got
people?
rid of the evil people.
Maybe these other people really were witches, but I know Francis is not, because he is my family.
Yep.
Remarkably, just like Jeff, Claire Danes had an ancestor at the Salem witch trials. But on the other side, named Margaret Scott was one of the defendants accused of crimes that make clear the full insanity of the proceedings.
One of my cattle was dead in the stall and stood up on his hind feet and kneeled on his knees afore.
Later, he discovered one of his cattle dead in its stall, standing on its hind legs. Pardon me,
A clear connection.
Another of his cattle was found dead with its neck under a plank, as if it had been choked to death. This, he believed, showed that your 9th great-grandmother was a witch.
I wish it felt more alien, I have to say, but I think that we're still vulnerable to these to this magical thinking.
Big time.
Yeah.
All told, 11 people testified against Margaret, almost all of them her neighbors. We can't say for certain what motivated them. Claire, one of those hanging bodies is a representation of your 9th great-grandmother.
We can be so awful to each other, right? It's
Inexcusable.
yeah. It's just amazing. We're capable of
We're capable of anything.
a lot.
Yeah.
In both directions. Well, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that she had to leave the world in that way.
She alleged her innocence to the very end. Of course she was innocent. You know?
So yeah, there are, right? There are some celebrities. Of course, if we did the Ancestry.com with every single celebrity, we would find out that they're all one related to one another. Of course, if they actually give their real last names and real identities, which they don't, they all have fake names. Nobody ever wonders, why do celebrities have fake names? Like, no, they have fake names because it sounds better, right? It sounds better to call somebody Jeff Daniels than his real last name, which could be, Jeff Berkowitz. You know what I mean? You get that reference, right? Or anything along those lines. No. It's because it rolls off the tongue better, and the suckers just go, oh, okay. No, it's because they're all related to each other, and all the celebrities are related to all the politicians and are related to all the business CEOs and heads of corporations, all the communists, all related to one another. Of course, they're all involved in the occult. Thus, if we actually had every one of these celebrities on there, we would find out they're all related. And on top of that, we'd find out that they're all related to somebody who practiced sorcery and witchcraft. Probably all related to Aleister Crowley. So 376 years later, the bad spell that befell the innocent people accused of being witches during the U.S. colonial period is over. Connecticut last week passed a resolution exonerating people tried and executed for witchcraft nearly 4 centuries after their so-called crimes. And of course, this is really important this day and age with everything going on, that we focus on 400 years ago exonerating people of witchcraft, even though there's nothing whatsoever to show that they're innocent, other than them just going, anyone who's a witch is innocent, just like they did with the West Memphis Three, even though they have blood contracts with Aleister Crowley, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they just came up with HBO series conveniently, and celebrities showed up at the prison to make these kids look like heroes. It's pretty amazing, and then to try and frame somebody else. But we all know that obviously all these people who dabble in witchcraft and sorcery and Satanism are all protected by our government and protected by the celebrities because they're all one and the same. So State Senator Saud Anwar, who introduced the resolution, said the gesture was righting a wrong that has stood in Connecticut's history for centuries, and you can expect to see this in every single state. I just covered it up in Boston, I believe, is where it happened. So, up in Salem, Mass, I should say. So they say, we cannot go back in time and prevent the banishment, tarnishing, or execution of the innocent women and men who are accused of witchcraft, but we can acknowledge the wronghoods they faced and the pain they felt. Pain still recognized by their survivors today. The resolution resulted from the Connecticut Witch Trial Exoneration Project, whose participants became disenchanted by what had been state lawmakers' failure to apologize for the fate suffered by many convicted of witchcraft. And again, you could see the tie-in with people who are liberal in today's society, communist liberals, who are very sensitive, who want apologies, they want reparations. You see the similarities here? They were begging for an apology for the relatives that were killed of witchcraft 400 years ago. Don't obviously look at it and say, well, what did they actually do that they were killed for witchcraft? Did they do something with animals, children, black magic, et cetera, et cetera? Were they a danger to society? No. They were innocent. They were just picked on because they liked to wear witch hats and pretend they were playing Wizard of Oz and they were the Wicked Witch. And they were all just playing. It wasn't real. Apologize, right? And here's one of the funnier parts. The vote passed 33-1, so you get your 33 in there, just for the sake of the occult, right? The resolution made clear that the state legislature recognized the residents of colonial Connecticut were falsely accused. The witch trials of colonial America in the 16th and 17th centuries, including the most famous proceedings in Salem, saw hundreds of people accused of practicing witchcraft and associating with the devil, casting them out of their societies and tarnishing their family names. Many were ultimately tortured and hung to death in Europe. An estimated 50,000 people were executed in witch hunts between the 15th and 18th centuries. Get me back to the 15th and 18th centuries, please. At least 34 people were indicted for practicing witchcraft in the Connecticut witch trials. 11 people were hung. And one of the victims of the Connecticut witch trials was Alice Young, who left behind a 7-year-old daughter when she was hung. Young was a botanist accused of using witchcraft to create a pandemic that killed children in the town of Windsor. And of course, we don't need any evidence if that was true or not. It's just the whole notion of it's crazy conspiracy, right? I mean, what witch would actually create a pandemic, right? You get what I'm going with here, right? What Satanist or witch would ever create a pandemic? Oh, right. Reminds me of something. Anyway, for some of the descendants of these victims, the resolution brought relief. Hartford resident Susan Bailey, Young's 9th grade granddaughter, told the Washington Post, it doesn't matter that it was so long ago. It's somebody's life that was taken unjustly. Now, where? Well, there's no proof to say that they weren't a witch. They're pretty much just saying, so what that they were a witch? They should be apologized to and reparations should be made. That'll be next. Reparations, for those that don't know. There's people in this country asking for reparations because their relatives had things happen to them, so they want us to give them millions of dollars out of our taxes so that they can just sit around and not work, because reparations, of course, are for weak people who think that they're victims and think that they deserve handouts their entire life. These are people who obviously don't realize we live in a country where you can go and you can make money and you can be successful if you work hard and you try, which is true to a degree. Not going to become famous in Hollywood, of course, unless you make the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice, which of course relates to this story. But anyway, this woman is just really happy that the people are apologizing to a relative from 400 years ago. Don't worry about the fact that the world's burning around us right now and that there's going to be massive food shortages and grid shutdowns and things of those lines. No, we just need to apologize to the witches. Don't worry about the fact if they were guilty or not. There's no such thing as sorcery or witchcraft, of course. So we're all crazy nuts if we actually believe they were practicing it. God forbid somebody actually did research and found out that the witch was actually creating a pandemic that went after children in the town. I mean, that couldn't be true at all, right? These people were just clearly targeting the woman for no reason whatsoever. Alice Young was just being picked on by people because she had a funny looking nose, right? And she was walking around with a broomstick between her legs. Oh, right. So they were just like, let's get her. She's walking around with a broomstick and she's not sweeping. We should go after her. Oh, no, they were really practicing witchcraft and sorcery. But they just want you to think that, of course, witches are now victims along with Satanists in today's society, which means you can't criticize them, you can't talk about it, and even the notion that they exist. I mean, right? We have Satanists who claim they don't believe in the devil, yet they dress up wearing the devil on their shirts. They scream, "Hail Satan." We're supposed to believe they don't believe the devil. And now we're supposed to also believe that witches don't exist, right? They're like, we're not real witches, we're good witches, right? That's what I hear a lot from witches on my videos over the years. We're good witches. There's a difference between good and bad witch. Oh, is there? I must have missed that because last time I checked, there isn't. There isn't. And as I said earlier, Exodus tells us that thou shalt not suffer a witch to fill in the blank. I thank everyone for being here. Again, I appreciate it. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, man. What a world we're living in. Get me back to the 14th century. I'd thrive back then. Really would. Thanks again, everybody. God bless you and your families.